We are back with the gang. And for decades, the software development landscape has been largely defined by a fundamental tension, even a conundrum, this gap between having a brilliant idea then making it a reality. So, developers have typically navigated complex setup processes, configuration headaches, deployment pipelines that took weeks just to establish before writing a single line of meaningful code. That might end or might be changed significantly with GitHub's latest innovation called Spark, which is designed to collapse this timeline from weeks to minutes. I want to start it off with JP. I'm wondering if you think GitHub Spark, which I believe is available now in public preview for a Copilot Pro Plus subscribers, represents a meaningful shift in how we approach application development.
This is not new. There are a number of startups out there that are offering this capability right now. There are a number of VS Code plugins that have provided this capability for developers at the moment. The Claude Code is one of the more popular tools right now that is in use that will allow you to basically submit a product requirements document and develop the entire application for you from or at least a rough initial uh version of your application based on that. Some of them that are out there actually will take handwritten drawings of what the screen should look like and convert them into React JS applications. So I don't see this as new or innovative in any way above and beyond what's out there today. I think it's interesting that it's kind of being, what, if anything, that's interesting here in this story is that GitHub, which is kind of started, if you remember from the replacement for CVS, the code repository, is now becoming this hub, real hub for all aspects of development, right? And that is, all those other things I mentioned, they kind of leave you stranded in the process, right? You're still responsible for building your DevOps pipeline around it. You're still got to figure out how to address, the changes that you want to make, the maintenance of the application, how to deploy that, and the thing that I think Spark will add or offer the users is the ability to kind of get all that running, right? All right, Spark, add me a workflow so that when I check in, it automatically deploys. Spark, do this, So it's, yeah, I got my app, but I also have the ability from within that environment to create the way to test and operate that new application. And that would add to the services that are offered by some of these other startups that I mentioned.
You know, JP, as I think about it, the way I see the market developing, we are in a transitioner period. To your point about software engineering, there's kind of two main paths that we're going down. One is the IDE based or the hybrid IDE, where it's an IDE plus a chat session, an interactive session with whatever model that you're using. It can be through a web browser, it can be a plug-in to your IDE, but we're still looking at code. We're still seeing it, watching it. Maybe we're analyzing it, maybe we're not, but it's intended for a more technical audience. Then there's the no code audience, which is just give me an interface. Here's my document. Here's my requirement. Help me build something. That's the Firebase, Google Firebase Studio kind of products, and some of them have that also within the IDE, but it's still an IDE. I think this is a very conscious effort, and both of those are evolving at their own paths because the IDE path is also dipping down into the CLI. Here's now you have AI at the CLI level as well as your IDE. There's a mouthful. But going the no code route, I think this is very intentional by GitHub to attract or expand, open the kimono to a larger group of users because GitHub does not attract non-technical users. You land on GitHub and most people would say, I don't know what all those files are. It looks like a file system. What is this thing for? But if you go into Spark, it looks like it looks like a chat interface and for building an app. Now they talk about micro apps, meaning they're not trying to get too fancy or sophisticated. So I think that's part of the attention here. You could also see it as kind of an experiment. Can they attract more users beyond the traditional developers?
And I do see this as a fundamentally different kind of product in that it is specifically designed, as you pointed out, not just to write the code, but to build everything else as well. So essentially, you can say, "I wish there was an app that would let me, I don't know, count my dog's steps while we go on a walk." And not just like, oh, well, here's some code that could be useful in making that happen, but it'll literally like create the whole thing and deploy it for you in the cloud. And then bada bing, bada boom, you're watching your dog's steps the next day. The problem is, in my mind, that by making it so easy, and again, I don't want to sound okay, I'm going to sound like the old man yelling at people. Okay, come on, bring it. I can take it.
That's
Um,
today's
that's,
theme.
that's today's thing.
That's
Yeah.
your
All
that's
right.
your
Get
that's your
off my
persona,
lawn with
I
Steve.
your
am going to
dog.
get you a folding lawn chair, but it's okay.
But the point is, I mean, by making it so easy to deploy, essentially you are cutting out any kind of adult supervision of that product. And I'm worried that what we're going to end up with is people just rolling out all of these apps. I mean, we hear about all these privacy data breaches and so on. This recent one where, women's driver's license were exposed to like 4chan trolls. Things like that. Well, I bet that that's going to become a lot more popular and common if some of these AI driven apps make basic mistakes in their infrastructure configuration and database configuration and security models, because there is no security model. It's just sort of like, yep, bada bing, there you go. Got yourselves a database. Have fun with that.
So we discussed this on yesterday's show as an article I wrote on Security Boulevard, which is the S in vibe coding stands for security. There is none. But that being said, it is unfortunately, and I say this as a security person, this isn't new. Whenever something new comes down the pike, security is an afterthought. Security is a bolt-on. Security only gets built in when enough people bitch and moan about it. And so we're not up to the bitch and moan, except for Stephen. We're not up to the bitch and moan
Well, I'm
stage
gonna
yet.
defend. Yeah, I'm gonna back up Steven on this because I had the same impression. Is like, when you talk about speed, getting there faster, bigger, better. There's always a compromise. There's always kind of you take a shortcut to something. Inevitably, there are consequences. And I thought about the security hole here. So I totally
I
agree with
mean,
you,
we all
Steven.
think about the security hole, but lay yourselves down on the track and see if that train stops for you. My money is it doesn't, right? That train's full speed ahead. And that, as a security person, it's disheartening, but it's what we've seen. We saw it with the headlong rush into the cloud. We saw it with every new innovation like that. In the article I mentioned 15 years ago, doing a podcast with the CEO of MongoDB and Couchbase, and I asked them point blank, does NoSQL stand for no security? And they said, when our customer demands security, we'll build security in. That's
And
what the
has that
CEO.
happened? Because we got so many security breaches.
Yeah, well, in NoSQL databases, they have put in some security features. It's not as bad as it was 15 years ago. But this is the issue. But make no mistake, right? Go west, young man. Progress stops for no one. We are going to see a proliferation of vibe-coded apps. Full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes, right? People are going to do it because they can. And as a security person, I will tell you the attitude has to be, we could lay down in front of the tracks and hope the train stops. That's not a good strategy. Or we could say, yes, we can. What can we do knowing that this is inevitable? It's inevitable. What can we do to try to put in some guardrails, to try to head it off at the pass, to try to anticipate what's going to happen here and do something? And I think that's the challenge to the security industry, is knowing that we're going to, This is like Saturday night, New Year's Eve night, amateur hour. All the kiddies are drinking and jiving. What do?
Are you trying to make me feel better or worse?
No, well, but this is the reality of it. What do we do? That you're not going to stop them. The genie's out of the bottle.
Well, here's something I'd like to see. So this is frickin' Microsoft. If there's a company that is mature about software development, it's Microsoft. What I want them to do is I want them to put serious security bona fides behind this application. I want them to put some real muscle and say, these things are going to be deployed properly. They're going to be deployed with appropriate security frameworks, a real attention to security and stability. And in order to make sure that these things, and frankly, I think that would sell. People like me would love that. And people like you probably too. I mean, I can't imagine John's article about, Microsoft promises to integrate security with all their AI coded apps. That would be a great article, wouldn't it, John? You want to write that one?
Yes, I think it would be quite refreshing, actually, instead of an afterthought. I mean, that's with the comment I think Alan made about, we'll get to it. We'll address that problem once our customer starts complaining. I mean, that seems to be the attitude. It always has been in Silicon Valley.
always has been.
Rush it out, then fix it later.
I was going to tap into, Alan, your mantra perspective. The train's left the station, right? This is going to happen whether we want it to or not. It has already happened. I think one unique characteristic of this is people building their own apps. They're probably building it for themselves in a lot of cases. Maybe they're building it for their business, but if they're building it for themselves, they're putting information about themselves in it, right? Maybe my dog steps, but it could be my investments or something else. And I think that may be an angle to appeal to the market is if you're building apps for yourself and you want your data protected, we're Apple. We know how to do that. We're Microsoft. We know how to do that. That's why you want to stay with us as opposed to some whatever company that, came out of the woodwork to offer the latest, greatest. Yeah, that might be interesting. But if you want to make sure your stuff is protected, we'll make sure your app is built securely. But that's only one angle. It's not going to stop everyone else from just building whatever apps using a web browser and whatever interface.
Security is a day 2, day 3 thing. Unfortunately, as much as we'd like it not to be.
Well, I do have an announcement, Alan. I was going to wait to the end, but since you and Stephen were vying for this, I think we're going to establish the Walt Kowalski Gran Torino Award, Get Off My Lawn Award. And this episode goes to, even though it's the second segment, goes to Stephen Foskett, runner-up Alan Schimmel. Unless you do something in the third segment.
I'm a notable runner-up. All right. Look, it is what it is. All right, let's take a break here.
Which he never says in the movie, by the way. He doesn't say that in the movie.
Let's take a break here on The Gang. Kudos to Clint Eastwood. But let's take a break here on The Gang. We're going to come back and talk about IT Simplified and VMware and more. You're watching Tech Strong Gang.